Hola, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidas y bienvenidos a este sexto encuentro finalmente del ciclo de conversatorio entre fagotistas. Es un ciclo que consta con el apoyo de nuestra decana, licenciada Cristina Vázquez, y con el trabajo de producción y difusión a cargo de la licenciada Lucía Guini, quien está con nosotros. ¿Cómo estás, Lucía?
Muchas gracias. Miquel, ahora te puedo
Siempre.
dar las gracias públicamente por los ciclos. La verdad que un éxito.
Están buenas, son lindos. Creo que todos estamos aprendiendo mucho. Siempre, lo digo para que quede claro, los lunes a través de los ciclos son momentos muy especiales, con todos los invitados y las invitadas. Pero cada vez que presento a alguien nuevo, me emociono y estoy contento como si fuese el primero y el último. Hoy tenemos la suerte, la dicha de que un eximio del fagot, una persona muy joven y que está haciendo una carrera brillante, haya accedido a charlar con nosotros y a divertirse un poco. Estamos hablando del fagotista holandés Bram van Sambeek, quien aparte de, tiene una, como dije, una trayectoria muy grande, aparte de ser, haber sido primer fagot de la Filarmónica de Rotterdam, bajo la batuta de Gergiev, Yannick Stegen y entre otros. Es invitado para tocar con la Sinfónica de Londres, la Orquesta de Cámara de Gustav Mahler, muy abocado a la docencia. En estos momentos él es profesor de la Universidad de Música y Danza de Colonia, en Alemania, uno de los establecimientos más importantes de Europa. Va a haber subtítulos más adelante, se los aseguro, gracias a la producción de la universidad, para los que lo necesiten. Yo ahora voy a empezar a hablar en inglés y espero que nos sirva porque la otra opción es en holandés. Así que siempre hay algo peor. Disfrutémoslo. Professor Bram van Sambeek, how are you? I'm done with Spanish.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I noticed. Yeah.
You were getting nervous, but no.
No, I recognize my name, and I have now 4 Spanish students, so I should learn. It's
But,
nice to meet you all.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Yeah, very nice.
Thanks a lot for the invitation as well. So it's nice to meet Buenos Aires. I'm afraid you're also in half lockdown like us, right?
Yeah. We are. Summer is nearby, so we don't know what's going to happen. If we copy Europe as we usually do from the last 200 years, we're going to be doing the same thing. Okay. But in a way, the idea of these conversations is to wake up a little bit and get somewhere else for 40 minutes, besides the pandemic. I tell all the guests that, which is true actually, that I always want you guys to come here. It's very difficult, but hopefully with you we'll manage to do so whenever the time is right, and we're going to be very welcome you with a concert or masterclass or whatever thing you want to do. Meanwhile, let me tell you that while I was reading about you and to tell the students to present you, I couldn't stop thinking about one word that I love. Actually, it's my religion, which is flexibility. And flexibility with the bassoon, since it's of course it's wood, but it's kind of harsh, it's an instrument which is straight up. Sometimes it's not coming together, especially long ago. But people like you, I think, are being more flexible. And your career so far, you're very young, still flexible as well. So the way you play and your career, your personality all come together. What do you think? I'm wrong, or I'm a little bit on the?
No, thank you. But I think also, that is really where I feel also the connection even without knowing you. I know Diego, of course. Nice to see you again. Diego, it's really, yeah, I feel I'm already connected a bit to your class, not only through Diego, but also because I know your recordings already, and I've always felt that there's, yeah, somebody that's doing a bit the same similar things that I also like to do, and I was also realizing more often that you know, maybe also flexibility that you're talking about is something that we find both of us in like more traditional roots, and we apply it to the technique of the bassoon.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that's really something extremely valuable, and it's maybe the only subject that that I'm sure will be nice to talk about. For the rest, I'm totally open to whatever questions you want to fire at me.
No, don't feel I'm gonna fire you because
yeah, no, no, it could be really as generous as you like, you know, and
no, if we would be in the States, that phrase, you know, would be censored. You know, nobody's gonna fire anybody. But
oh, yeah, yeah. In Dutch, this is the normal way. If you fire a question, that's just not asking a normal question.
I know,
It has to
you
do with
guys.
the Dutch directness. Yeah.
I know. But you know, since we speak in English, you know, the American, you know, are nearby all the time. Listen, the I'm extremely excited talking to you because through Diego Llanos, a former student of mine who went to see you guys, I had the chance to meet you over the recordings, to know about you, the recordings, and I remember talking about your flexibility. And don't misunderstand me, but I talked to my brothers who are like soulmate for me musically as well, and I say I found somebody else, and I say I found somebody who is trying to project the flexibility that the bassoon doesn't let us, and of course, some people from the past are, you know, not even nearby accepting this, putting all the few words next to flexibility to make it sound not as nice. Uh, your career is very flexible. I met your former colleagues from Rotterdam when I remember when he told me you left the orchestra, and in South America for letting a job as the one you had is sort of like mad. You know, nobody would think of if we didn't have a problem beside the orchestra, of course. I remember talking to Peter, your colleague, and he said, well, Gergiev and then Yannick Zagan. Yannick, I know him very well, and he's one of my favorite conductors. And when you did Gubaidulina, I was crazy to have that version of the amazing piece with you guys too. So it's a sort of like iconic. Uh, how do you manage not to be in an orchestra? Maybe at the beginning was hard, the process. What do you do to keep yourself, you know, in shape? It's kind of a tough, no?
Yeah. Well, I I actually gave up the orchestra not because I didn't like the orchestra, but I had somehow many chances to play chamber music and solo things, and I also like the teaching, and I like also to work quite slow actually, and have the feeling, at least myself, that I'm working in depth. So I found it difficult sometimes to play a different program every week, for example. But so there were no really negative feelings for the orchestra, but I thought everything together, all my ambitions, is too much. It's really too much. And even now I feel that, because now this is 10 years ago that I left the orchestra, and 4 years ago I started the professorship in Cologne, so in Germany. And this is a full professorship, and I recently, in the middle of the lockdown, even when of course you would feel most need for also security maybe in life, I still decided to give up this job as well. Because, I mean, first of all, there are good opportunities for me. I'm lucky enough to have some opportunities in Europe to still play, and also to teach in the Netherlands, a bit smaller class. So, yeah, as soon as I feel that the job is going to take away too much of the things I want to develop on the bassoon, I will, decide,
Let's
okay,
go.
I'm going for really for the playing. It has to stay really my musical ambition first of all. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna be very ego. My ego is gonna speak first. I'm extremely happy you do that, because that means that we're gonna get more recordings of yours and more personal projects, which are fantastic.
Hopefully.
But in a way, the orchestra takes all those projects in a slow motion, because what you said is true. You have no time to do everything. So if you keep playing the orchestra, you have to give up other things.
Yeah.
For me, doing a recording takes between 7 and 10 years. So far,
I
I don't
noticed.
know. Maybe I change, but and I accept it now because it's the way it is. But it's amazing, all the experience you have already, and it's so beautiful what you do. You want to tell us about any of your projects? You have so many. I don't want you to talk about one that maybe the last one, or whatever project you have in mind.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think also there our projects are sort of connecting easily. I know at least I'm aware of 2 CDs of your side that I both very much like. I really want to say that it's really, really great work, and it is very close to what I like to do as I see it. In such an album, or like thinking of a program like that. Like what if I remember correctly, you recorded, for example, Piazzolla, and also
Oh, mine.
do you
Yeah,
say
yeah, yeah.
Dirier? No, Dirier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
these
experienced.
that such composers, it shows. Okay, you have like there's traditional music that is very interesting to translate to the bassoon, and also it can spark a composer. It can be an inspiration to the contemporary composers, and I think that is really something important also for the students to think about. Maybe even specifically in this strange situation, this is something that we can still also do. We can make our experiments with, for example, traditional influences, and inspire other composers with whatever you find interesting to do on the bassoon. And I should say, that I sometimes regret a little bit that I didn't work more with composers while I was studying, because I realized only much later, hey, I was studying with this fantastic Dutch composer at the same time, and I only discover him or her now. And that is really something that is still possible to do, to sit together with somebody that could write something new and interesting for the instrument. So what I have been doing, or what I always like to do, is to look for what could be something that I can also show my audiences, or the bassoonists, but also just musicians in general, that the bassoon is not a limited instrument as it's sometimes used. No, I mean, not every composer recognizes the incredible capabilities of the bassoon. The weirdest experience for me is always that I still, when I play Mozart bassoon concerto, I realize very often that most of the audience actually never listened to a prominent bassoon, just the bassoon as solo instrument. So this is really something to fight for, to show all the different sides of the instrument, to find all the potentials. And for me personally, it is extremely important to find all the different styles that that could potentially work for the bassoon. You know, if I had the great traditional music of South America, I would be so happy. But in the Netherlands, we have unfortunately really nothing like that. You know, let's say we're close to Germany and the German-speaking countries where all the great composers come from, but they are not
Yeah.
really from my own country. So I sometimes use that as an excuse to steal anything from any style or any country that I like. You know, so I use it often as studies. So as maybe some of you know, I made also a rock album,
Yes.
including also even death metal songs and
Yeah.
whatsoever. And I should really always, I think, clarify that I don't consider myself a real rock musician, or if I want to study Piazzolla or a Korean flute etude from 2000 years old. I don't want to claim that I'm a specialist in this direction, but just looking very closely at the way that these other styles of music are being played are extremely important to me to learn more about what we can do on the bassoon.
Uh-huh. And Bram, while you were talking, you mentioned the contemporary composers. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong. You mentioned Didier, the composer I recorded, which is a long story, but we clicked in a way personally, and we knew exactly what we were looking for. And then he wrote this music, right? So then I feel comfortable playing. That's a process. But then it could happen that somebody asks you to play something, or you command a piece, and then the results are very uncomfortable, and then you don't recognize yourself playing that. And of course, you record it, you do whatever you, but it's not your piece. With your personal experience of your CDs, I've seen and I listened to two very nice contemporary concertos. Um, what was the process of looking for those composers? Because if you do it in a random way, you might get surprises. Not because you cannot play them, but you don't feel comfortable, then you don't enjoy it. And, you know, it's complicated.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, this is also a dilemma for me because on the one hand, you want to be open to everything, and as I said, please reach out to composers. Also, when you
Yeah.
are still studying, it's really great. Uh, Once you stop studying, there's also a difference that you may have to pay 10,000 euros for a piece. So it's kind of different feeling when you are still both studying. And I think actually you said it already that the personal connection is really important. So if you have like a friend that you already have a personal connection with, I guess already the chance could be bigger that you will find something interesting because of this connection if you also click musically. And in my case, I mean, it seems maybe that I'm quite focused on contemporary music, but I also have to admit I'm a bit reserved. It's not that I have like 300 new works on my name at all. I concluded already quite a long time ago that maybe the direction that the Dutch contemporary music is going is not always for me. But I also noticed that I have something with Scandinavian music. I find there's
Okay.
something really interesting in their tradition or mixing tradition with really something new, and also writing. There's one thing that always connects many of Scandinavian composers for me, which is I can imagine a landscape more easy when I listen to their music. And I need something like such a connection. And also, yeah, when I'm thinking of the maybe South American music, there is a lot of that in the style that appeals to me. You know, that I think, oh yeah, that you have a nice departure point coming from the traditional dances, and that was already a decision for me, like to go more in that direction. I have also a Scandinavian label, so that helps. And I also always personally commit a lot to the composer that I'm thinking about. So for example, Sebastian Fagerlund, to meet him, I made a bicycle trip of 600 kilometers to meet him, you know. So I made it important myself, to really see, you know, okay, this is something big. We're probably going for a big cooperation of bassoon concertos. So let's really also give the meeting some weight that way. And I showed him some results of, let's say, my own personal etudes of traditional efforts, you know, music and rock music. And then always you can find from these different studies, you can always find some starting point. For him, maybe you couldn't tell anymore if you listen to Fagerlund Bassoon Concerto, but one of the things that he used in the end was my trip to him. You know, I was imagining also the bike trip that is very tough, also as an inspiration for him, but also my blues study. It turned out that he's also a fanatic rock lover, you know, and you don't hear it maybe immediately in the music, but he could take it as an inspiration. So in that way, we also did our best to make the personal connection strong. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens. I was thinking, I'm sure you met Kim Walker already, maybe,
Not
or you know,
personally, no.
not personally. Well, you love her. You should.
Yeah.
She's also a person who committed herself to contemporary works, and all the pieces she recorded that were, you know, composed to her. It's like if Kim Walker had composed them. You know, it's like the composer know her so much that maybe it's not rock, blues, or whatever way of composing, but it's for Kim Walker. Even if you want to perform, you start playing as Kim Walker right away. Your music that you record, I couldn't imagine somebody else playing those pieces than you. You know, it's like the composer knows you so well. And maybe the mistake most of us make is that we put contemporary music as if every music is shit or good, in the same way as classical music. You know, I love it or hate it. And the composers that we could play beside Mozart at his period we will be surprised, and we will be bored immediately. In the same way as contemporary composers maybe write you a piece and it's nothing else but just, you know, paper. So we need time to do our work, to see who is going to compose our music, you know, in order to make it a good piece of art or whatever you want to call it. Um, what is the process of getting with a new music for you? You get the score, you get the music. What, can you tell us a little bit, or?
When I have to work on like a really maybe challenging new work, you mean, right?
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it looks like it's what you're doing the most lately. So yes.
Yeah. Well, this is what I like the most. So as I said, I sometimes found it hard to switch to play a completely different orchestra program every week, and I enjoy a lot when the process is long and maybe slow, and because it's very often that if you are working on something that looks impossible at first, that you realize after, I don't know, 6 weeks that something is possible, as long as you keep persisting. That, you know, so this is one thing. I also, as a principle, I try to not tell composers this is not possible. You know, I will never react like that. If I see something, you know, for example, just recently I got a new work from a Danish composer that wrote a high F sharp, so above the highest E that you know, in pianissimo. And my first reaction was still, yeah, even with a high note vocal, this is really hard. So yeah, you know, should I just tell him this is not really possible? And then I thought, no, I shouldn't do it, you know, and then see if I can find my way around it. And then with a lot of commitment, a lot of practicing, it's very often that you still find a way. And it's not, you don't have to be genius for that. It just means you have to believe that something that you didn't believe before was possible is possible, depending on what you invest in it. I mean, it can result in situations that I should not recommend at all to try this at home to students, because there have been works that led to me having a bleeding nose because I, for example, tried to sing really high and play very high.
Wow.
So it means I have reached also a point of limit, like where I had to say to the composer, you know, I'm so sorry. I just played the premiere of his piece with 2 pieces of
No way. Wow.
in my nose to stop
Cotton, yeah.
the bleeding. Let's say the cotton. Yeah. You know, so then of course it's possible to reach some limit, but I mean, for me, this is really important to really have also the feeling like, oh yeah, there is something I thought was not possible is possible after all. And yeah, in a good relationship with the composer, you can always find the most effective way. When you just mentioned Kim Walker as a reference, I think that's great inspiration. And for me, it has been an inspiration to read a bit also about Sofia Gubaidulina, how her bond was with Popov. And there you also see the same thing, that the bassoonist and the composer have an amazing bond. And yeah, this way, many ways of expressing this music become very human. So if you think of some effects in the works that Gubaidulina started writing fanatically, like she uses a lot of multiphonics, and I always find it fascinating how she manages to use the multiphonic on the bassoon as a really expressive thing. And this is something I noticed also in your recordings, by the way, that also when you play tango and you want to make it shout to bassoon and make it expressive, I also noticed that you use multiphonic sometimes in the sound as a really expressive tool. And that I find very interesting. You know, how can these techniques that many people sometimes agitate against as like, this is a really abstract sound, it's just a theoretic novelty, how it actually shows it can be super expressive and broadening the horizon of the instrument, of the expression possibilities, and actually very, as I said, like human quality.
Yes, my next question was actually regarding to what you just said, the human part of the bassoon. When you play that, you go through the technique, through the instrument. Of course, we chose the bassoon to do so, but in a way, you're not thinking of the multiphonic or the high F or whatever technique you want to use, the high part, the singing part, but you put all together and you just make it happen. And I say this because when you play tango in a way, and tango here is a major word, I actually decided to record what I did record because I lived abroad. Because down here, if you are not a specialist, in a way, they make you believe that you're not allowed to to play tango. But then listen to your Piazzolla, which is extremely lovely. It's beautiful to play.
Thank you.
It looks like we don't need to know if it's Piazzolla, Rameau, or whatever piece of music you decide to play. It's just beautiful music written by Piazzolla, performed by this Dutch bassoonist from abroad, and
Who
that's
can
it.
definitely not dance the tango, by the way, also.
But that's why you play the bassoon.
Yeah.
No, seriously. And then there is a composer, I don't know if you know, is Pierluigi Billone, excuse me,
Yeah.
which also I start thinking when you start talking about the high F sharp, this guy writes the pieces after he spent time at a studio with a bassoon, for example, or whatever instrument he decides to write. He buy those cheap Chinese bassoons or whatever instruments and start moving the fingers and try getting experimental sounds and write it down, which for guys like us that study the bassoon is very hard because we have already the perfect way of playing a note for us. And these guys just make you play, whatever you have to do in order to make that sound. And it makes me think of how to play Piazzolla in the same way, because if not, we get very small, the artistic way of releasing a piece like you do. There are too many barriers or too many laws. I don't know how you say it in English. Sorry, today is not an English day for me. I'm sorry.
No.
What is the approach, for example, for you to play Mozart and Weber? I don't recall another classical piece. I'm sorry, it's gone.
The one on my recording, the new one, let's say, Dupuis,
yes,
or yeah,
Dupuis, lovely.
yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
You do. I mean, the paradox of studying very deeply Piazzolla and study very deeply Mozart, for example, I just say two composers, or just play Piazzolla because it's a lovely piece to hear the cafe, and and study like crazy the score of Mozart. It's always something that to think about. Do you play, for example, classical instruments in order to play Mozart with a modern bassoon, or you just study the score? How is your approach to the pieces that we all know already?
It's a good question also, because otherwise it could also seem like maybe students are now thinking like, oh yeah, they are both interested in contemporary music, and I can also understand that that you don't always find your connection to it immediately, but I think also there's the surprising part, how similar it can be, or how you can actually learn from, I don't know, the most obvious connection that is surprising, I find always between what I learned playing metal music with a drum kit behind me, taught me a lot about how I can play quick movements of Vivaldi. So there can be really surprising connections that just make you realize, as long as you treat this music with respect and integrity, you can make something your own. And I think also being classical musician in that way can be an advantage, because we are allowed to take things. No, we take it generally from the past, but we automatically take already many different styles from the past, but we will never be this kind of specialists that the people in Mozart's time were. So this is also why I am not even so comfortable to make an improvisation cadenza in Mozart. I wish I was, but I'm just not. And that has also to do with the fact that I am interested in so many different styles. So my most important thing is to keep it clear for myself is that I want to respect every style, but really, as I said, not claim that I'm a specialist. I just want to have an image of how the Mozart concerto could have been played. Doesn't need to be proven, but I want to develop my own ideas about it, and I think it's very important also to take the distance of a concerto like that, you know, try to see it from far away. So, for example, it's easy to calculate that Mozart bassoon concerto is a little bit cursed, you know, by ourselves in a way, because we always have to play it in a moment that we are going to be judged. So
Exactly.
it's yeah, we are playing this more often for a table of 10 grumpy faces than anything else, and um, that means that we are already influenced a bit in how we may play this. If we are always thinking of these situations that were kind of tough, it's very important to find a counterweight that is actually what this piece was, you know, a very youthful, youth-spirited work. And personally, the counterweight is just to read some of Mozart's letters from that time and realize how, you know, how many jokes he makes, for example. There's so much humor in it, and it makes you realize that the music is maybe a bit lighter than we always feel it. So yeah, I think it's just very important to always go into backgrounds of any music, because that's our classical training. And then it's actually, yeah, for me it was a great realization. Maybe for you guys it's obvious, I don't know, but for me it took way too long before I realized I can take whatever I like, you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
and just do it for my own fun, or maybe, you know, if it's a bit uncomfortable. Like recently, I studied a Korean flute thing, and I thought, yeah, it's a bit funny, you know, to now play this in public, because I actually don't know the scale that is behind it. You know, I cannot say, is the quarter tone that I'm playing in the Korean traditional music, is that just the flute that was out of tune, or is there a really complex tone system behind it? So that's a little bit embarrassing then to play a piece on a concert stage, and then you don't know yet enough about the background. So you have to test it, you know, with integrity, and ask some Korean players about it. You know, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? And then still, yeah, I mean, I cannot say, I made this Korean piece my own. So I'm just trying to make a distinction also what you can do for your own fun, and then it can lead to a new technique. So from the Korean study, I learned so many different kinds of vibrato, because I was interested in this music, because the Koreans are very proud of the many different kinds of vibrato that they use in their traditional music. So this way I take something from that music, and then, because I didn't find out enough about it, I'm not going to play it on stage. I just do it for my own fun, for learning more about the bassoon and what I can do with it. And then maybe one day it leads further, you know. I learn more, or maybe some composer that I talk to, maybe a Korean composer, realizes that, oh, hey, we can bring something together from the traditional music with my new ideas.
Yes,
So
I was thinking while you were explaining us very interesting things, the importance of contemporary music, not as defending the movement of contemporary composers. However, I would, but also maybe the approach, which is wrong, because we spend so much time learning Mozart for grumpy faces, as you said, and wishing to perform all the operas of Mozart, etc. And then we forget about a simple thing as a contemporary piece, which is happening right in front of us when we take the bus or the metro or we take a plane. And all those sounds then in a music stand seems harder to understand. And maybe as a teacher that we are now in the chair of a teacher, maybe change the process of teaching and not taking so much time to put contemporary music in a stand for a student instead of spending time in a Mozart piece, which is extremely difficult to understand in a way. If we have to understand a piece of 300 years, 400 years, excuse me, ago, than a piece that is written by a friend who is a great composer who's living next door, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's the way. I don't know. I would get a beer. Well, it's too early for me to get a beer, but
I'm closer to that time that you can. Yeah.
I
For
know
me, it's now almost 4 o'clock. So
I know you would, but maybe another time we do another chat if you have time, and a different time for Buenos Aires, so I can get a beer for real. And
yeah, that would be great. Yeah, and
yeah,
for the students, I mean, what you just said last, I think it's really that's really true, and I think also to make it more accessible, it's very nice to start from the student perspective. You know, I'm sometimes inviting my students or asking them, you know, what is it then that you are listening to that is not classical? And very often there's a whole world behind that I discover. You know, they turn out to listen to rock music or completely
course,
different styles. And I think this could be a really nice project also when you are in this strange situation that we are all now, you know, that you think again about how to maybe make the bridge, you know, and you will find, even if you listen to Lady Gaga, you will find something that is difficult to translate to the bassoon, but
of course.
it's a great challenge to try it, and it can be a really nice project on your own.
In a way, I think I'm sure you think the same as you just said it. It's easier to listen to rock pop music that is happening right now and play as natural as they sing actually or they play than trying to play a Vivaldi perfectly in the same manner. And then you take the Vivaldi and maybe it's more relaxed and it comes just naturally as it should, I think. Um, but maybe I don't know. We'll see you in a Lady Gaga CD. Who knows?
So, yeah, I will reveal that my next CD is actually just Bach, you know. I have to,
Okay, well,
but I will do actually a Corona related theme because I love the piano work, so the keyboard works from Bach, and I enjoyed quite some multi-tracking there. So I will record a Bach partita in multi-track to have finally illusion of harmony for us. So yeah, I can recommend having fun that way as well. Yeah.
fantastic. I'm looking forward to all your work. I'm looking forward to talk to you soon. Who knows? And of course, to get you to know you personally for my students and whoever who wants to join that moment, it will be a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to listen to, and thank you for keeping up with your great ideas. And I know it's a lot of work. I know. So from my heart, congrats. Yeah,
Thank you. Great to meet you. I'm looking
yeah,
forward to meeting all of you live one
yes.
beautiful day. Yes.
We should. We should. A big hug, and thank you so much.
Same. Hey, bye bye.
Be safe. Bye. Bye. Bye.